Hi again. I was hoping that we would get to like around chapter 33. Right now we're on chapter 25. We'll see how much further we get, okay? Chapter 23 is seal blubber. Turning this way so you can see a little bit. Flora's father's car seat smelled like butterscotch and ketchup, and Flora was in the back seat where the smell of butterscotch and ketchup was the most powerful. She had a Boots shoebox with Ulysses in it on her lap, and she wasn't feeling carsick even though the car wasn't. Let's start over. Flora's father's car seats smelled like butterscotch and ketchup, and Flora was in the back seat where the smell of butterscotch and ketchup was the most powerful. She had a Boots shoebox with Ulysses in it on her lap, and she was feeling carsick even though the car wasn't moving yet. She was also feeling the tiniest bit overwhelmed. Things in general were pretty confusing. For instance, here was Ulysses sitting in a shoebox knowing that there was a shovel in the trunk of the car, that the man driving the car had been instructed to whack him over the head with the shovel. And the squirrel didn't look worried or afraid. He looked happy. And then there was Flora's mother, the person who had given Flora the shoebox to protect her little friend on his journey. You'll just put this washcloth in here as a comfy blanket. She was standing at the door, smiling and waving goodbye to them as if she weren't truly a murdering, planning arch nemesis. Talk about the darkness of 10,000 hands. Nothing was as it seemed. Flora looked down at the squirrel. Of course, he was not what he seemed either. And that was a good thing. An incandesto thing. Flora felt a shiver of belief, of possibility pass through her. Her parents had no idea what kind of squirrel they were dealing with. Her father put the car in reverse as he backed out of the driveway. I can't read apparently this time. Flora saw William Spicer standing in Tootie's front yard. He was looking up at the sky. He turned his head slowly in the direction of the car. His glasses flashed in the sun. Tootie appeared. She was waving one of the pink gloves as if it were a flag of surrender. "Stop the car," she shouted. "Step on the gas," Flora said to her father. She did not want to talk to Tootie, and she definitely did not want to talk to William Spicer. She didn't want to see herself reflected in his dark glasses. She had her own thoughts about the random and confusing nature of the universe. She didn't need his too. Also, she was in a hurry. There was a murder to stop, a superhero to mentor, villains to vanquish, darkness to eradicate. She couldn't waste time trading stupid thoughts with William Spicer. "Flora Belle," shouted William Spicer, almost as if he were reading her mind. "I've had some interesting thoughts." He ran toward the car and fell into the bushes. "Great Aunt Tootie," he shouted, "I need your assistance." "What in the world is going on?" said her father. He slammed on the brakes. "It's just a temporarily blind boy," said Flora, "and Miss Tickman from next door. She's his aunt, his great aunt. Never mind. It doesn't make any difference. Keep going." But it was too late. Tootie had helped William Spicer out of the bushes, and the two of them were walking toward the car. William Spicer was smiling. "Hello," her father called out. "I'm George Buckman. How do you do?" Flora's father introduced himself to everyone at the time, even if the person was someone he had already met. It was an annoying and extremely persistent habit. "Hello, sir," said William Spicer. "I am William Spicer. I would like to speak to your daughter, Flora Belle." "I don't have time to talk to you right now, William Spicer," said Flora. "Great Aunt Tootie, can you assist me? Will you take me to the Flora side of the vehicle? Please excuse me while I escort this extremely disturbed and neurotic child to the other side of the car," said Tootie. "Certainly, certainly," said Flora's father. And then he said to absolutely no one, "George Buckman, how do you do?" Flora sighed. He looked down at Ulysses, considering the human things she was surrounded by. Believing in the squirrel seemed like an increasingly reasonable plan of action. "I want to apologize," said William Spicer, who was now standing beside her window. "For what?" said Flora. "It wasn't the worst poetry I've ever heard." "Oh," said Flora. "Also, I'm sorry that I wouldn't take off my glasses when you asked me to." "Take them off now, then," said Flora. "I can't," said William Spicer. "They've been glued to my head by evil forces beyond my control." You lie, said Flora. Yes, no, I don't. I do. I'm engaging in hyperbole. It seems as if the glasses have been glued to my head. He lowered his voice. Actually, I'm afraid that if I take my glasses off, the whole world will unravel. That's stupid, said Flora. There are bigger things to worry about. For instance, Flora realized that she was going to say something to William Spifer that she hadn't intended to say. The words were out of her mouth before she could stop them. Do you know what an arch nemesis is? She whispered. Of course I do, William Spifer whispered back. Right, said Flora. Well, Ulysses has got one. It's my mother. William Spifer's eyebrows rose up above his dark glasses. Flora was pleased to note that he looked properly surprised and shocked. Speaking of Ulysses, said Tooty, I have some poetry that I would like to recite to him. Are you sure that now is the best time for poetry recitation? Said William Spifer. Ulysses sat up straighter in his bootsy boot box. He looked at Tooty. He nodded. I was moved by your poetry, said Tooty to the squirrel. Ulysses puffed out his chest. And I have some poetry that I would like to recite to you in honor of your recent, transformations in your life. Tooty put a hand on her chest. This is Rikely, she said. You set out beyond your recall. Go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like flame. And make big shadows I can move in. Ulysses stared up at Tooty, his eyes bright. Flare up like flame, said Flora's father from the front seat. That is moving, yes. It's quite lovely. Flaring up like flame. Thank you so much. We have to be on our way now. But will you return? Said William Spifer. There's a spider on my ceiling and it's scaring me. Flora looked up and saw William Spifer's words hanging in the air above him like a small tattered flag. But will you return? I'm just spending the afternoon with my father, William Spifer, she said. It's not like I'm heading off to the South Pole. Terrible things can happen to you. I had done an extensive piece on what to do if you were stranded at the South Pole. Their advice can be summed up by 3 simple words. Eat seal blubber. It was astonishing, really, what people could live through. Flora felt cheered up all of a sudden, just thinking about eating seal blubber and doing impossible things, surviving when the odds were against her and her squirrel. She would figure out a way to outwit the arch nemesis. They would triumph over the shovel and the sack, and they would triumph together like Dolores and Incandesto. I'm glad, said William Spifer. I'm glad that you're not going to the South Pole, Flora Belle. Flora's father cleared his throat. George Buckman, he said. How do you do? It's nice to meet you, sir, said William Spifer. Remember those words, said Tooty. Flare up like flame, said Flora's father. I was speaking to the squirrel, said Tooty. Of course, said Flora's father. My apologies, the squirrel. I will see you again, said William Spifer. Beware the arch nemesis, said Flora. I will see you again, said William Spifer. We're off to fight evil, said Flora as her father backed the car out of the driveway. William Spifer waved at the car. I will see you again. He seemed so stuck on the idea of seeing her again that Flora didn't have the heart to tell him he was waving in the wrong direction. Did I show you guys this picture? I did, because then I told you about the spider. I can't remember. Chapter 26. Spies Don't Cry. Flora's father was a careful driver. Pause. Due to the spider, I've moved from the chair, and the way that I was standing was getting very difficult to stand, but the window is very bright. We'll try to make do. This is underneath my table. Chapter 26. Spies Don't Cry. Flora's father was a careful driver. He kept his left hand at 10 o'clock on the steering wheel and his right hand at 2. He never took his eyes off the road. He did not go fast. Speed, her father often said, is what will kill you, and that taking your eyes off the road. Never take your eyes off the road. Pop, said Flora, I need to talk to you. Okay, said her father. He kept his eyes on the road. About what? That sack and that shovel. What sack? Said her father. What shovel? It occurred to Flora that her father would make an excellent spy. He never really answered questions. Instead, when asked a question, he simply responded with a nifty sidestep or a question of his own. For instance, when her parents were getting their divorce, Flora had a conversation with her father that went something like this. Flora, are you and Mom getting divorced? Flora's father. Who said we're getting divorced? Flora. Mom. Flora's father. Is that what she said? Flora, that's what she said. Flora's father. I wonder why she said that. And then he started to cry. Spies probably didn't cry, but still. There's a sack and a shovel in the trunk of your car, Pop, said Flora. Is there? Said her father. I saw you put them in there. It's true. I did put a sack and a shovel in the trunk of the car. The criminal element said that there is a good idea to engage in restlessness, open-ended questions. If you question with enough ferocity, people are sometimes surprised into answering questions that they do not intend to answer. When in doubt, question. Question more, question faster. Why? Said Flora. I intended to dig a hole, said her father. For what? Said Flora. A thing that I am going to bury. What thing are you going to bury? A sack. Why are you burying a sack? Because your mother asked me to. Why did she ask you to bury a sack? Her father tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. He stared straight ahead. Why did she ask me to bury a sack? Thank you. Why did she ask me to bury a sack? That's a good one. Hey, I don't know. Why do you want to get something to eat? What? Said Flora. How about some lunch? Said her father. For the love of Pete, said Flora. Or some breakfast. How about we stop and eat a meal? Any meal. Flora sighed. The criminal element advised, stalling, delaying, and obfuscation of every possible sort. When it came to dealing with a criminal, her father wasn't a criminal, not exactly, but he had been enlisted in the service of villainy. Basically, he was in cahoots with an arch nemesis. So maybe it would be good to stall to delay the inevitable showdown by going into a restaurant. Besides, the squirrel was hungry. He would need to be strong for the battle ahead. Okay, said Flora. Sure, let's eat. Chapter 27. The world in all its smelly glory. Okay, sure, let's eat. What wonderful words those are, thought Ulysses. Let's eat. Talk about poetry. The squirrel was happy. He was happy because he was with Flora. He was happy because he had words from Tootie's poem flowing through his head and heart. He was happy because he was going to be fed soon. And he was happy because he was, well, happy. He climbed out of the shoebox and put his front paws on the door and his nose out the open window. It was a squirrel riding in a car on a summer day with someone he loved. His whiskers and nose were in the breeze, and there were so many smells, overflowing trash cans, fresh-cut grass, sun-worn patches of pavement, and loomy richness of dirt, earthworms, loomy, smelling too, often difficult to distinguish from the smell of dirt. Dog, more dog, dog again. Oh, dogs, small dogs, large dogs, foolish dogs, the torturing of dogs was one relatable pleasure of a squirrel's existence. The tang of fertilizer, a faint brisk of birdseed, something baking, a hidden hint of nuttiness, pecan or acorn, a small, apologetic, don't-mind-me odor of mouse, the ruthless stench of cat. Cats were terrible. Cats were never to be trusted. Never. The world in all its smelly glory, in all its treachery and joy and nuttiness, washed over Ulysses, run through him, filled him. He could smell everything. He could even smell the blue of the sky. He wanted to capture it. He wanted to write it down. He wanted to tell Flora. He turned and looked at her. Keep your eyes open for, I hate this word, malfiance. She said to him. Ulysses nodded. The words from Tootie's poem sounded in his head. Flare up like flame. Yes, he thought, that's what I'll do. I'll flare up like flame, and I'll write it all down. Chapter 28. The Giant Do Nut. You'll have to leave the squirrel in the car, said Flora's father, as he pulled into the parking lot of the Giant Do Nut. No, said Flora, it's too hot. I'll leave the windows down, said her father. Someone will steal him. You think someone would steal him? Her father sounded doubtful but hopeful. Who would steal a squirrel? A criminal, said Flora. The criminal element spoke often and passionately about nefarious activities in every human being is capable of. Not only did it insist that the human heart was dark beyond all reckoning, it also linked the heart to a river. And further, it said, if you are not careful, the river can carry us along in its hidden currents of want and anger and need, and transform each of us into the very criminal of fear. The human heart is a deep, dark river in hidden currents, Flora said to her father. Criminals are everywhere. Her father tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. I wish I could disagree with you, but I can't. Ulysses sneezed. Bless you, said her father. I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to stop here because it's at the end of the sentence, but I'll finish this chapter in the next video.